All right, class, welcome. Today you're taking notes. Remember to use your notebook. Few things about these notes. Make sure you're listening because something I'm saying verbally might be on tomorrow's quiz. So you have a quiz on this tomorrow. And sometimes even though all the information's there, doesn't mean you have to take notes on everything that you have there. Just remember, write this shorthand. You're taking notes. You're not writing everything word per word. Let's get started. So it's World War II. And let's get started with what we know about some of the causes of World War II. So, going back to world history, going to be going to world history quite a lot. Known as Maine, militarism, glorifying military, seeing the idea that you need a strong military to become a power, and a desire to fight for your country. Then we also get alliances, countries supporting one another, being there for one another, being friends. We get imperialism. They're not just competing for land and resources, but they're taking over people, um, and they're also competing to see who's going to win this fight for more land and power and resources. Then lastly, we get nationalism. Nationalism is just the idea your country's better, that you're number one. So France, for example, defeated an FP war, desired to regain power. Germany, newly formed nation, strongly military. So those are just examples. So for nationalism, just put the idea that your country's number one and you should support it. So once again, as you copy notes, your notes down for Maine, just write down one jot dot for each. So for militarism, glorification of military. For alliances, supporting one another, having friends. Imperialism, competing for land and resources. And nationalism, your country's number one. Okay. And all that's going to lead eventually to what we know as World War II. And a prime example is Nazi Germany. We have a military, we have friends, we are conquering other people, and our nation is number one. Something else that's going to cause World War II is the Treaty of Versailles. Let's see what we have to write down and understand. Um, this is the treaty that ended World War One. It's signed by the U.S., Britain, and France. Um, the Central Powers are blamed. In other words, Germany, Austria-Hungary, um, and they're left with a lot of debt to pay. So if you can see here, um, it's basically this agreement saying the German people must pay for all damages to civilians on land or sea. Um, but it's going to lead to people rising to power. Also, Adolf Hitler, who's going to say, "Hey, we're going to get rid of all that." It's full of hope, but also vengeance and hate. So, in other words, scapegoating and blaming other people for Germany's fault, blaming the Jewish people along with many other groups. Italy, following the same steps. Mussolini is also frustrated with with the Treaty of Versailles. Then we get into the Great Depression. We know about the Great Depression. All we know, it's a worldwide event. Um, War debt. People need to pay back those bills from World War One. U.S. focus on isolationism. So, in terms of foreign policy, it's not going to entangle itself with European powers. However, during World War II, even before it joins the war, it's going to be supporting both sides through trade and um, economics. So they're just trying to stay out of European affairs. Fascist dictators. These are three fascist dictators we need to know. Let's see what we need to know about fascism. The Great Depression, let's write this down so you don't have to worry about anything about this slide. The Great Depression is going to lead to fascist dictators who promise hope. That's all you need to know. Germany, let's see. What's going on with Germany? Adolf Hitler rises to power, unites the Germans under economic promises and support of the Aryan race. So, the Aryan race, you remember from last year, it's the idea of blonde hair, blue eyes, a group of people that are above and superior to other people in the world. Their goal is to become a superpower once again. So they're slowly rebuilding their army, taking other land like Czechoslovakia, um, and then France and Britain. They're saying, you know what? We already had a World War One. We're not trying to have a World War Two. So let's just appease Germany and give in to their demands. And then Japan, same pattern as Germany. We get Tojo, who glorifies war, nationalism, and blames democracy for economic collapse, the Great Depression. Japan invades Manchuria, China, in search of resources. So as you can see up here, Japan's going to be coming into this land and taking over, conquering and killing people in search of that new land. Italy, same exact thing. So we get Mussolini, Benito Mussolini, also friend of Adolf Hitler, expands into North and Eastern Europe, sorry, Eastern Africa, and they're also nation building. So the two powers of conflict that you need to know are the Allies, one side, and then the Axis on the other side. So Allies, Britain, Soviet Union, United States, and technically, some people like to say France, but it, they're going to be conquered and taken over even before the start of the World War. So if you want, you can write France. The Axis, Japan, Germany, and Italy. And down there, you can see their flags underneath.
My teacher?
Some British
Yes, little
propaganda
Hitler. My
from that
desk is
time.
smart. I need this
And I'm going to ask you
Polish
to watch
boy's
this clip.
desk also.
As you watch this clip, take some notes as to what's little Hitler
Everyone gets
doing
the same
because
size
this is what
desk,
your
little
notes are
Hitler.
going to entail.
My teacher?
Little
My desk is smart. I need this Polish
Now,
boy's
class.
desk also. My teacher? I will need the Czechoslovakian
Everyone
boy's
gets the
desk as
same
well.
size Little Hitler, where's little Pulaski?
So keep in mind of what he's doing.
Now, class. My teacher? I will
What's
need
going
the
on here?
Czechoslovakian boy's desk as well.
Little Hitler, where's little Pulaski?
Little Hitler, always having fun.
What's going on here?
So it starts with Poland, taking over Poland, eventually much of
It's
Europe.
not my problem.
And as you can tell, after Germany
Now,
takes over
it's my problem.
Poland and the rest of Europe, we get the United States. Let's see how we get the United States involved.
It's not my problem. Now, it's my problem.
So it's not until one country comes over, it's almost itself the United States, which we got if we can, but it does go Yeah, this came out on Adult Swim. It's kind of goofy, I know. Alright, let's continue with our notes. Alright. Let's see if I can get this going back again. There we go. So, with our notes, as we continue, France is defeated by Germany, just like as you saw in the video. They go into Western Europe, eventually taking France and what's known as the Blitzkrieg or a fast attack. So the Germans occupy France. We get also other campaigns like Desert Campaign in North Africa. The Allies are actually facing a lot of defeats during this time, so it seems like the Axis are going to win. Here's just some images of France and just a map for you to get an understanding of how much of this purple Axis territories held during the 1940s, and the green representing the Allies, and then the yellow just neutral countries. You know about World War II, the European Holocaust, the Nazi Holocaust, through death camps, labor camps, and concentration camps. People who are deemed undesirable are killed off, or tortured or experimented on. Some of those groups are the Jews, gays, lesbians, prisoners of war, Eastern Europeans, gypsies, politicians, and many other groups that are seen as a threat for Germany. You saw some of those bodies there. When do things start turning around? We know things start turning around in a battle known as Stalingrad. It's one of the bloodiest war between Soviets and the Germans. Germany starts losing, and it starts changing the ties of the war. So maybe there is hope. So some destruction here, soldiers, and then just here's a remembrance of those that were fallen. Let's look at the United States. While that's going on, let's look at some new information. So the war effort at home, also known as home front. Um, we need workers. A lot of the men, um, so white Americans are off in the war. What happens here? We get Mexican men brought over, known as braceros. Women and African American women and men take over many of the jobs left behind. And this is where you get Rosie the Riveter. Yes, we can.